afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This program is being recorded. Welcome. I'm Elizabeth Campbell, the chair of the Council on Legal Education Opportunity, CLEO. On behalf of CLEO's CEO, Cassandra Ogden, the board of directors, and our awesome staff, it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's event and to thank our speakers. Our featured speaker is the distinguished University of Michigan law professor and MSNBC contributor, Barbara McQuaid. Go Blue! Our moderator is the esteemed state's attorney for Baltimore City and CLEO alum, the Honorable Marilyn Mosby. Shout out to Tuskegee. I want first for us to be grounded in the CLEO vision and mission. The vision of CLEO is that the United States legal profession is truly diverse, equitable, and inclusive, and that it effectively balances the scales of liberty and social justice for all. Our mission is to inspire, motivate, and prepare students from underrepresented communities to succeed in law school and beyond. The work of CLEO as the preeminent diversity pipeline organization for the legal profession is more important now than in the 50+ years of our history. As current events reveal challenges to the very rule of law and civil and human rights, you may be wondering, what is the role of lawyers in this climate? What can you do? Here's my story. When I was sworn into practice before the United States Supreme Court, oh, so many years ago, Justice Thurgood Marshall was on the bench. From my perspective, standing before the full court, I could see him looking at me and perhaps thinking, but for me, young lady, you might not be standing there. And I was thinking, but for you, Justice Marshall, I might not be here. From that day to this, I pledge to uphold the U.S. Constitution, the rule of law, to conduct myself uprightly, and to carry forward the work of civil rights giants like Justice Marshall. Now, what will you do? Ponder that as we look at the overview of our exciting program for today. We're going to hear a number of testimonials from CLEO past participants and students, alums, look at some of our success story, and then we're going to take time with our speakers and have a conversation. There's plenty going on in current events even as we speak, so I can't wait for us to hear this part, but you'll be able to participate as well. The first 20 minutes will be the two of them, and then it'll be opened up for Q&A, so get ready, get those questions ready. After that, we'll hear a little bit more about how you can get engaged going forward. And after our closing and acknowledgements, there'll be an opportunity to join the chat session virtually in your reunion class. So be on the lookout for an email, don't leave this session, it's coming, that'll have the entrance information so that you can join the class reunion of your preference. I'd like to, again, thank everybody for joining us, and thanks to all the people who helped make this program successful. I am so very proud to be an attorney, and I'm so inspired by the work of CLEO. I hope that after our program, you'll be just as inspired as I am. Now let's hear from some of our CLEO participants. Thank you.
My name is Mickey Witchuwong. I came from Thailand originally, and I have lived in the US for half of my life. I served in the military for a few years before I moved back home in the DC area. Then I have a passion to go to law school and try to become an immigration lawyer. So CLEO has been helping me a lot to gain the knowledge how to go to law school. I actually found out about the CLEO from the law school event. And then the first time I went to the CLEO is the first time that we went to have the mock law class. And that class is opened my mind regarding how to analyze the real situation and how to see the outcome if you are the lawyer. Then I start participate more with the activity with the CLEO. I went to the outset prep I went to the law school admission and I went into with some real lawyer. And beside of the knowledge that I gained, the network there is really amazing. You won't believe me if I'm telling you that I met my current boss, from the CLEO. He and I was a regular member of the CLEO. Again, so I think CLEO has been helping me a lot in terms of prepare myself, give me some knowledge, and allow me to have more networking to meet new people, and they are amazing. I just want to say thank you so much again for having me today.
Hey you all, my name is Vito Andre, and I'm from Miami, Florida. I was a part of the 2019 CLEO Summer Institute program, and I just wanted to share with you all a little bit about CLEO and how it's impacted me. I think participating in CLEO's summer program, not only the practical skills that I learned has helped me tremendously, because I don't know what I would have done just going into law school without having some exposure. I think CLEO has, and organizations like CLEO, definitely help people who have a diverse background, either if you're a woman, minority, whatever. I think it gives you the exposure that not a lot of us have, and it allows you to know that you're in the right place. Giving back, I envision myself giving back to CLEO. Just some things like this, just talking about the impact that CLEO has on me and some of the students that I know who went through CLEO. I think in some capacity, of course, giving back money when I make it to become this big time attorney. Ms. Ogden and Ms. Hayes, thank you all for the opportunity. Thank you all for being hard on me because it wasn't easy. We can sit back and laugh now about the interview process, but and then thank you all for taking your time just to be a part of this event. I love you, CLEO, and I love you all who are part of it. Blessings to you all.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yaneris Rosa. I am a current CLEO board member. My journey with CLEO started in 2004 when I was a participant in the CLEO Attitude is Essential program, which is essentially the weekend program that prepares you for law school. As a first-generation college student, that was very helpful for me because I didn't really know any lawyers in my family or in my network. So CLEO provided the tools for me to understand exactly what I was walking into as a 1L. Throughout the years, I stayed very involved with CLEO because I think it's very important to give back. The same way that CLEO opened doors for me, I want to be able to do the same for other law students that are coming up the pipeline. So I love CLEO. I love everything the organization stands for, and CLEO has my full support. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. We appreciate those testimonials. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leigh Allen II, and I'm CLEO's Vice President of Marketing and Development. Echoing the earlier sentiments expressed by our board chair, we sincerely appreciate you taking time out of your schedules to join us today. For 52 years as an organization, CLEO has dutifully lived up to its mantra of training tomorrow's lawyers, preparing tomorrow's leaders. So many of you attending today are walking, breathing testimonials of the meaningful impact CLEO has had on the legal profession since its inception. At this point in its long and storied history, more than 25,000 individuals have participated in a CLEO program and/or utilized an offered service or resource. With that said, as I'm sure is the case for many of you since early March, 2020 has been a year like no other due to the ongoing impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, the resulting economic fallout, and of course, the growing calls nationwide for social justice and racial equality. As a small yet nimble organization, CLEO was able to quickly adjust our slate of spring, summer, and forthcoming fall 2020 programming to be offered virtually. As displayed here on the screen, a few of this year's programmatic highlights to date include hosting the multi-week Pre-Law Summer Institute for more than 40 students online with Penn State Dickinson Law, facilitating 3 online sessions of the 1L Prep Attitude is Essential seminar with more than 100 attendees, administering 4 online sessions of the Achieving Success in the Application Process seminar for pre-law students with more than 150, and putting on a series of virtual teen town halls for 200 plus high school students focused on social justice related themes with our multi-region CLICS mentoring program as well as successfully launching the Clicks e-mentoring cafe app. For more information about these and other cool programs and service CLEO offers, please visit us online at cleoinc.org. And now let's get to the heart of today's program, our moderated conversation between Baltimore City State's Attorney, the Honorable Marilyn Mosby, and University of Michigan law professor and honorary legal analyst, Barbara McQuaid. We're excited and privileged to have these two dynamic female legal powerhouses highlighting today's program, and I have the distinct pleasure of introducing them to you. On January 8th, 2015, 2002 CLEO program alum and Boston, Massachusetts native Marilyn J. Mosby was sworn in as the 25th state's attorney for Baltimore City, making her the youngest chief prosecutor of any major American city. Mosby is a first-generation college graduate who attended Tuskegee University and subsequently earned her Juris Doctorate from Boston College Law School. After law school, she joined the Office of the State's Attorney for Baltimore City, where she quickly advanced from district court to general felony. In 2013, she decided to run for Baltimore City State's Attorney, and after successfully completing one of the largest upsets in election history, she assumed office and immediately transformed the state's attorney into a national model for progressive holistic prosecution, exemplifying the mantra of not just being tough on crime, but more importantly, being smart on crime. During her first year in office, the state's attorney reached an 80% homicide conviction rate, despite a 20% increase in the homicide caseload. While the primary focus of her administration has been and continues to be successfully targeting and convicting violent offenders, she understands that the community has an integral role in ultimately realizing a safer city for all who live there. As an active member in her profession and community, she serves on a number of leadership positions on committees and boards. A recipient of multiple professional and community awards, accolades, and recognition, State's Attorney Mosby is married to Maryland State Delegate Nick J. Mosby, and they reside in West Baltimore and are the proud parents of two beautiful daughters. Barbara McQuaid is a professor from practice at the University of Michigan School of Law. Her interests include criminal law, criminal procedure, national security, data privacy, and civil rights. From 2010 to 2017, Professor McQuaid served as the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan. Appointed by President Barack Obama, she was the first woman to serve in her position. Professor McQuaid also served as Vice Chair of the Attorney General's Advisory Committee and co-chaired its Terrorism and National Security Subcommittee. As U.S. Attorney, she oversaw cases involving public corruption, terrorism, corporate fraud, theft of trade secrets, civil rights, and healthcare fraud, among others. She also serves as a legal analyst for NBC News and MSNBC, and her work has appeared in the Washington Post, Foreign Policy, Lawfare, Just Security, Slate, and National Public Radio. She's also been quoted numerous times in the New York Times, Time Magazine, Newsweek, Politico, and other publications. Before becoming U.S. Attorney, Professor McQuaid served as an assistant U.S. Attorney in Detroit for 12 years, serving as Deputy Chief of the National Security Unit, where she handled cases involving terrorism, financing, export violations, threat, and foreign agents. Professor McQuaid began her career as a law clerk for U.S. District Judge Bernard A. Friedman in Detroit, and then practiced law at the firm of Butzel Long in Detroit, Michigan. She previously taught at the University of Detroit Mercy School of Law. Quite a Michigan connection there. She has been recognized with the Detroit Free Press for the Neil Shine Award for Exemplary Regional Leadership, the Detroit News with the Michiganian of the Year Award, Crane's Detroit Business as a Newsmaker of the Year, and one of Detroit's most influential women. So without further ado, I turn the conversation now to these two dynamic ladies. But before the conversation commences, please note that if you have a question you'd like to ask either of our speakers, you can type it in using the chat function located at the bottom of your screen. The questions will be based on time availability. And on this note, going back to Professor McQuaid's MSNBC connection, we just learned the duty calls for her. She will have to depart immediately following the conversation with State's Attorney Mosby to do an MSNBC segment at 2 p.m. regarding the Steve Bannon indictment announced earlier today. So State's Attorney Mosby, the conversation's on you.
Thank you so much. I am so incredibly honored to be here with each and every one of you. CLEO holds a very special place in my heart. As an alumni, I was part of the 2002 Summer Institute at Michigan State Detroit College of Law. I would not be the attorney that I am today without CLEO. And I want to just be clear, make it clear that that is my position. And I, you know, one of the things that was highlighted is that CLEO trains the lawyers today and prepares you to be a leader for tomorrow. And I can say that that is honestly the God's truth. And I can remember when I applied to law schools, I graduated from Tuskegee University with a 3.8 magna cum laude GPA, and I got waitlisted to every single law school that I applied to. I came across this dynamic program, not having attorneys in my family, being a first generation college student. And I can tell you that I was so excited when I got accepted into CLEO. And that's ultimately the reason why I got into my first choice. That was one of the sponsor schools, one of the partnership schools for Council on Legal Educational Opportunity. I had an awesome opportunity to interview with them and ultimately got into my first choice. So I would not be the woman that I am today if it were not for Council on Legal Educational Opportunity. And so I am excited. I am ready to talk about what's happening in this world right now. And I am just so proud to be on the same platform with Professor McQuaid, who is a dynamic professor, has done dynamic things in the legal profession. And as you can see, she is in demand. So she's not gonna be with us. She's gonna have to leave on time at 2 o'clock because she's gonna be talking about what's happening in the legal world, and especially right now in this trying time. So Professor McQuaid, I want to just jump into it. I didn't want to make this all about me, but I wanted to ask you, I mean, all that we have seen in America, all that's been happening in America, particularly in these past few months, with respect to the overall sort of legal landscape and civil unrest. What is your perspective about what's happening right now in this country?
Well, Attorney Mosby, thank you for moderating this event. And I also want to thank Elizabeth Campbell for inviting me to join you all today at CLEO. And thanks to Leigh Allen for that kind introduction. But in terms of the unrest, I think that what we're seeing is a reflection of people who are just fed up with a system that again and again shows that we have a lot of disparities in our criminal justice system. I know you've done a lot of work to be not just tough on crime, but smart on crime, which was also the attitude that we had at the Justice Department under the leadership of Attorney General Eric Holder and Attorney General Loretta Lynch, that justice is not best achieved and public safety is not just best achieved by maximizing punishment. You have to have prevention. You have to have treatment. You have to have legitimacy of the police if people are going to respect the law. And I hear people saying things like, well, crime rates are up. That must be because the police are going too easy on people. I speculate that crime rates are up because police have lost legitimacy. The killing of George Floyd was really just sort of the last straw. People have seen those viral videos now for years. These didn't just start in 2014 with the killing of Michael Brown. They've been around forever, but what's changed is the ability to videotape them with cell phones. And so now that these things are laid bare for everyone to see, it kind of reminds me of that moment when John Lewis and others were crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and everyone across the country could see the police brutality of them, being beaten, and said, that's intolerable. And I think the same thing is happening across the country with police abuse. And so to say enough is enough, I think has sparked all of this unrest. And from it can come some very good things. I mean, I am a big advocate that we need police, that we cannot completely defund police, that we need police to make sure that we respect life and property and protect the most vulnerable among us. But we need to make sure that our police has legitimacy by treating everyone fairly. And there's some work to do to get there. So I appreciate those police leaders who have said, we acknowledge we have work to do and we're open to it because we want to be better and we want to work for everyone.
I think you bring up some really great points. And I think that these are some of the issues and concerns that I've had in Baltimore. Being one of the first prosecutors in the country to attempt to hold police accountable for the death of a Black man by the name of Freddie Carlos Gray Jr., who made eye contact with police, who was unconstitutionally arrested, placed into a metal wagon head first, feet shackled, whose spine was partially severed in the back of that wagon, and whose pleas for medical attention were ignored. I followed the facts with the law. I wouldn't do anything differently. And I can say that, those individual officers, there were systems in place that prevented police accountability. And although those individual officers weren't held individually and criminally responsible, every single police officer is being held accountable for the actions of a few. We can point to tangible sort of reforms, the use of force, policies that, emphasize the sanctity of life, the requirements that, individuals have to be seatbelted, and you have to mandates to call a medic when requested. But what was greater in that moment was that, following that case, that accountability, which wasn't being had in that country, led to exposure. A week after I charged the officers, the Department of Justice came in, exposed a pattern and practice of discriminatory police enforcement in the city of Baltimore. That enforcement ultimately led to exposure, right? We now have that exposure led to resolve and reform. We have a federally enforceable consent decree that, even despite Trump that tried to stop it, is still on record. And so I guess I'm asking more so, what role do you see lawyers play in this movement, in our quest for justice and a more just society? What types of career opportunities do you believe there are that directly impact our society? Clearly, prosecutors are one, right? But what other roles are there? What types of careers and opportunities might directly or indirectly impact justice in our society?
I think this is our moment, lawyers. We need to step up. There is work to be done, and history has its eyes on us. I think for people who are starting as law students right now, the opportunities are so plentiful, but even for practicing lawyers, there are plenty of things that we can do. I was talking with Sherilyn Eichel the other day, who runs the NAACP's Legal Defense Fund. And what she has said is, as a profession, we have failed our nation, and it is time to step up. We have allowed things to erode incrementally until we now have a crisis. We should have been working back then, but we're sort of like the frog that was put in the pot of boiling water, that as the heat was turned up gradually, maybe we didn't notice, but now we're burning, we're on fire, and lawyers, it's time to step up. So for younger lawyers,
This is call for work that I gotta be on to take a screenshot of real quick.
Put your phone on mute, guys.
If I can get off of here.
Well, I'll continue with my answer. But for people who are just starting in their legal careers in law school or entering the profession, so many things that you can do in your career. As you mentioned, Attorney Mosby, being a prosecutor. I think sometimes people look at prosecutors as part of the problem, but nobody has the ability to be part of the solution more so, I think, than prosecutors like you, progressive prosecutors, who can make sure that police departments are held accountable, that they use their discretion in a way that creates equal justice under the law, that holds sex offenders accountable. There are many things that can be done there. Defense attorneys, we need very good public defenders. There's such a great disparity that I saw in the criminal justice system between the kind of legal representation that we see by people who are people of wealth and people who are not of wealth. And so to have very good public defenders out there working to protect the rights of people who are accused of crimes is incredibly important. And so that people's rights aren't run roughshod. I think that most prosecutors act in good faith, but I think the crushing volume of cases means that sometimes people don't get the kind of individualized attention that they should. And so good public defenders can help in that regard. Civil rights lawyers are so incredibly needed. We need people to bring lawsuits on behalf of people who are victims of police brutality, and also to enforce voting rights and housing rights. And other kinds of discrimination, civil rights lawyers. But for those who are already practicing law and you think, it's too late for me. I work at a big fancy law firm, or I'm in-house at a private corporation. That is absolutely not the case. There's so much good work that you can be doing. I know that here in Detroit, we have many lawyers sitting on the boards of directors of wonderful organizations that are in the community working on various ways to improve social justice. And so boards need the help of lawyers to help them function, to help them run. And if you are helping those organizations run, then you are contributing to the mission that improves social justice. So even if your day job does not give you the time to work directly on social justice issues, look for ways that you can support social justice organizations with your legal talent.
I think you brought up some really, really great points. I would just plug being a prosecutor. I think that that's one of the best ways because it's one of the most important stakeholders in the criminal justice system. And I believe that systemic reform comes from within. So, you know, when you talk about who's going to be charged, what they're going to be charged with, what sentence recommendations they're going to make, right? Whether somebody gets into the criminal justice system in the first place. I think that I should not represent only 1% of all elected prosecutors in the country. And I think that when we talk about the need for diversity and equity, I can tell you that 95% of the prosecutors making those decisions about your life and criminality are white, and 79% are white men. As a woman of color, I represent 1% of all elected prosecutors in the country. And I just would encourage you to consider a career in the criminal field, and especially as a prosecutor.
And can I just add to that point about the importance of diversity among those decision makers? One of my goals in my office when I was the U.S. Attorney in Detroit was to hire people from different backgrounds and different perspectives, because it's so important that we not just be an echo chamber. You can have people of good faith, but if they all see the world in the same way, then they're not going to make the best charging decisions. It was very useful. We would often roundtable discussions about cases before we indicted them and before we went to trial. And it was very useful to have someone in the room to be able to say, you know, in the neighborhood where I grew up, just because you run from the police doesn't mean you committed a crime. And that's a different perspective than some other prosecutors might have had. But it caused you pause. It made you think twice about what was actually going on there. Or people from different cultures, people born in different countries, to be able to say, just because you don't make eye contact with police doesn't necessarily mean you're suspicious. It may be a sign of respect in some cultures. And so if you can have those perspectives around the table, it'll help you make more just decisions and also more effective decisions, because you can bet that diversity will be reflected in a jury, and those voices will be out there, and they'll be asking those questions. So if you can anticipate them in advance, you will make better charging decisions and reach more just outcomes.
And you're absolutely right. You bring with you your life experiences. So that is incredibly important when you are determining and deciphering what justice looks like, right? And that's the mission. And I will again plug prosecutors, but and we're hiring. Another plug, but in any event, that's your mission as a prosecutor, which is to seek justice over convictions, not merely to just go in and get a guilty finding. And that's not the job of a prosecutor. Your mission is justice. So I would ask you, I mean, as a former prosecutor, what observations have you made about the Department of Justice? I mean, the Department of Justice sanctioned conduct with respect to local law enforcement, pending federal prosecutions, rejecting plea deals, sentence commutations, and I would even say what's happening right now with the Department of Justice. What's your perspective having that experience?
I am very concerned about the Department of Justice. I worked hand in hand with many of the good people who work there. There are great career people in the Justice Department who work, just as you said, to achieve just outcomes. But I'm very concerned about the leadership. Attorney General William Barr, I think, has acted in ways that make me question his integrity. He has been, to me, at times, more of an attorney for President Trump than he has an attorney for the people. The oath that he takes is to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, not to be loyal to the president. And when you see things like what was described by a federal judge as distorting and misleading representations about what was in the Mueller report, about moving to dismiss the prosecution of Michael Flynn on what I see as a very pretextual basis of materiality, seeking to reduce the sentence of Roger Stone, both of them being allies of the president, when he has not intervened in other cases, I think has really undermined at least the appearance of the independence of the Justice Department. And that's so incredibly important because I think people have grown very cynical of the Department of Justice, and it needs to be an organization that people trust and believe in. If we want law enforcement to be effective, we have to believe FBI agents when they testify in court. We have to open the door when they knock on the door asking about a kidnapping victim. And if we think that they are just another arm of the political process, then law enforcement is going to be less effective and our nation is going to be less safe. And so I have grave concerns about the current direction of the Justice Department, and I think we need more than anything new leadership there.
So, I mean, you brought up some really great points. What you were talking about before about losing legitimacy with the police, and we're on the cusp of doing that with the Department of Justice. And so you are absolutely right. It makes our jobs a whole lot more difficult, which is why this election is so incredibly, incredibly important. So what do you think is the importance of organizations like Council on Legal Educational Opportunity to both the profession and society in the coming years? And what advice would you give to those pre-law students, right? Those individuals that are not quite there yet?
Well, I think an organization like CLEO is incredibly important, not just to the legal profession, but to society in general. We are better and more effective when the lawyers in our society reflect the people of our country. And for too long, our legal profession has lacked diversity. Women are now entering the profession at equal rates, but historically have been underrepresented, and you'll see at certain seniority levels still a gross underrepresentation of women. Minorities of every kind are still grossly underrepresented, and we need people to have those different perspectives to come help us to make better decisions. I also think it's really important to have people who have been traditionally underrepresented in all of those roles as role models. It has been said that seeing is believing. And I think until you see someone who looks like you in a profession, it's very difficult for many people to aspire to that job or to think of themselves in that way. I mean, it's one of the reasons I'm so thrilled to see Kamala Harris as the vice presidential candidate, because I think that people will see her and think about the world in a different way, certainly a different way than I've thought about it. I have a son who is now 20 years old. But I remember when he was young, we had our first woman governor, Jennifer Granholm, and she was speaking at the Democratic National Convention some years ago when he was about 5 years old. And as we were awaiting her speech, a different speaker was there. The governor of Pennsylvania, Ed Rendell, was speaking. And my son was gathered around the TV to watch her speech. And he said, "Now, who's that guy?" And I said, "That guy, oh, his name is Ed Rendell. He's the governor of Pennsylvania." And he said, "You mean boys can be governors too?"
Aww.
And I was so struck by that because he was 5. It really shows how our worldview is so shaped by what we see. He had only ever seen Governor Granholm, a woman, and thought of that as a woman's job. And so there's no reason to think women can't do these jobs, as my son observed, but also no reason to think that they're limited to any particular gender or any particular race or religion or sexual orientation. And so every time we break one of those barriers, I think it helps all of the rest of us. And so I think we need more people to be pioneers in their fields. I mean, it's wonderful to see someone like you with your job, because kids are watching and they see people like you doing their jobs. And so to people who are younger and aspiring to be lawyers, I would say this: even if you don't see someone who looks like you in a job that you aspire to, we really need you. We need your perspective in that job so that the job can be done better. And we need you in that job to help break that barrier for all of those who will come behind you. It may be difficult to be the only person or one of the only people or one of few people doing a job who looks like you. But you can do so much good work in the job, and you can open doors for those who come behind you. So I urge you to consider things like being a prosecutor or running for public office, or just even being a lawyer in our profession, in a large law firm. That's how we pave the way for those who might come after us.
Professor McQuaid, you are on point today. And let me just say that, you know, when you talk about having a role model, even from a distance, Kamala Harris was that for me. I read her book, Smart on Crime, and it was at that point that I determined that I needed to be a prosecutor. I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I didn't know what type of lawyer I wanted to be, but I understood that the system, that systemic reform comes from within after I read her book and I saw her in this position. And at the time that she was doing the job, there was less than 1% of women in that position and in that role. So you're absolutely right. So I want to open it up, I guess, to some of the questions from the audience. And so I guess we can go to the chat. Let me see. I'm not sure how to do this, so work with me. Okay, chat, we got 30 here. Okay. So, the last one, we have comments.
A lot of fan mail for Marilyn Mosby I'm seeing in the chat.
I'm grateful. It says, let's get to a question. As a graduate studying for the bar, you both are giving me motivation. Thank you, and please keep going. I didn't pass the bar the first time. Please understand, you will get there. Have the confidence and know that you will get it done. Can you both discuss the impact of changes going on in the U.S. Postal Service, criminal activity, and impact on veterans, and impact on elections? Yeah. You want to go with that, Professor?
Sure, I will. So it is a crime to knowingly and willfully obstruct the mail. It's a federal offense, but it does require that the sole purpose of what you're doing is to obstruct the mail. It seems that we are hearing some mixed things out of Washington, that some of the things that the Postmaster General is doing were needed fixes, and they were just removing all of these sorting machines because that was scheduled already and other things. I know that Congress has called the Postmaster General in to testify tomorrow about what's going on with the Postal Service, and so I'm hopeful that that will expose whatever is happening or not happening at the Postal Service. But it is a way that a president could make some serious trouble for our elections in a year when we are expecting a huge number of people to be voting by mail. To slow down the mails could really cause a suppression of votes. I know in my own state of Michigan, ballots must be received by election day to be counted. And so you could mail it several days in advance, thinking that that's a perfectly reasonable amount of time for your ballot to be received by the clerk's office in your same city. And with slowdowns of the mail and orders not to work overtime and the like, you could see some of those ballots arriving late and not being counted. And so I think it's important to have congressional oversight to find out what's going on. But I'm very concerned. This is the Postmaster General is someone who's a donor to President Trump, no prior experience. President Trump, I think, has shown himself to be someone who seeks to win at all costs, regardless of what it does to our democracy. I don't know, do you have different thoughts on that?
No, I share your same sentiments. I think we have to call it for what it is. It's intentional voter suppression. And it's an act of desperation. You see the polling, he sees the general sort of sentiment to get him and remove him out of office, vote him out. And I think that he's attempting to intentionally suppress the votes. And so, yes, we need that congressional oversight at this point. And again, it goes back to what we were talking about the legitimacy of the Department of Justice. We don't have that. We don't have the traditional sort of mechanisms for that oversight and the checks and balances that existed before, which is even more of a reason that, you know, our democracy and the way that we know life in America has changed, and we need to get him out before it gets worse. And so you hit the nail on the head. We need that congressional oversight. And he needs to be held accountable. I mean, for once he is out of office. And so I hope that will take place, and I'm pretty confident that it will. So let's get to another question, and the other question is, what advice would you give an attorney who has no criminal law experience but wants to make a career change?
I think it's perfectly acceptable. You know, when I went, I had been in private practice for 5 years before I became a prosecutor. I had done only civil work, but the U.S. Attorney's Office welcomed me and trained me. And I think many prosecutors' offices are willing to do that. You get trained pretty quickly at a U.S. Attorney's Office because there's a need to be kind of thrown into the fire. But there's also a very sophisticated training program. There's a training facility in Columbia, South Carolina, on the campus of the University of South Carolina, where experienced prosecutors come down to provide training. And so I was able to learn through training and by doing, and with supervisors and trial partners, how to be a prosecutor. So I would say don't be discouraged if you don't have that kind of experience, because I think that most prosecutors' offices are happy to take talented lawyers with an eagerness to learn and to train them.
And I can say that we do, and you will. It's the best sort of training ground. And I say, if you can survive in Baltimore City, you can survive anywhere. And you learn to think on your feet and to be a trial attorney. And we have a very regular sort of training program, somewhat of a boot camp, you know, with body-worn cameras now, and we have an evidence review unit, and we have a rotation of prosecutors that you will get a diverse set of experience, trial experience before. And what often happens in prosecutors' offices is that people will get the trial experience and then branch out into the civil world. But what I've attempted to do in my office, at least, is to try to recruit mission-oriented prosecutors, folks who understand the inequities in the criminal justice system and have a passion to reform it. And so I'm looking for those individuals, not necessarily just to get the trial experience, but who understand what we're trying to do, and that the mission of my office is really justice over convictions. We have another question. Let me get it up. Sorry. How likely is it that Trump will be indicted for the myriad of felonies he has committed? Great question.
Well, I think not while he's in office, just because the Department of Justice has given a legal opinion that a sitting president cannot be charged under our Constitution. And whether that's right or wrong, I think that no Justice Department lawyer will charge him. Now, could he be charged in the state? I think that's a possibility. We see Cyrus Vance in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office investigating him for fraud, and has revealed that it's not just the payments, the hush money payments, but also potentially bank fraud and tax offenses. So that's a possibility, because he would not be bound by that same Justice Department policy. I think he would still get a motion to dismiss that President Trump will litigate all the way to the Supreme Court as to whether a president can be charged. And that might be good for our country to get a firm answer on that question of whether a president can or cannot be charged. Although by the time that happens, he probably would no longer be in office. And so what they might want to do is just wait and charge him on January 20th at 12:01 p.m., unseal the indictment, and as he's getting on the helicopter to fly off into the sunset. I also think that this next administration is going to have to ask some hard questions about whether to charge him with other crimes. Certainly that requires evidence, and they'd have to look at that. But if there is evidence, Joe Biden has already said he would allow his attorney general to make that decision. He himself would not be involved in that decision, which I think is the right call, because you don't want people thinking that after every presidency, the successor is going to charge the prior president with crimes based on politics. And so for Joe Biden to say, I'm going to be hands off, but I'm going to let my attorney general look into this activity, and if they believe that charges are appropriate, to file them. I think what's more likely than crimes committed during the presidency are crimes committed by Donald Trump, the businessman. And so I think look for things out of Cy Vance's office, money laundering with Russia and those types of things. I have no inside track on what the evidence says, and it would require support of the evidence before charges could be filed. But those strike me as more likely than things that happened while he was president, just because politics makes it a lot more challenging, I think, to charge him with crimes that occurred while he was president.
Professor, in line with that question, we have a question that says, what if Trump refuses to leave the White House? What legal standing would he have to, quote unquote, squat?
So the one thing that should give us all hope is that regardless of when the election is held, if there is no election, and there should be, right? Congress sets the election. It's set for November 3rd, and that should happen. But he has floated the idea of delaying the election. If there is no election, his term expires on January 20th, and he leaves. So does the term of his Vice President, Mike Pence. And so does the term of every member of Congress. What's left would be the Senate, and the succession statute says that the Senator pro tem becomes the president. If the Democrats, who have the majority of the seats that are not up for re-election, it would likely fall on Pat Leahy to become the president of the United States. So at that point, he would have the powers of the presidency and could order Trump removed for trespassing. But I think that he's probably not going to go so easy, and I worry about other things, like one, filing a lawsuit contesting the results. I think that's a possibility that could tie things up. But again, his term expires on January 20th. So if he's not the new president, then he can't stay as the old president. And we would see Pat Leahy come in and preside until they sort it out. The thing I actually do worry most about, though, is using his Twitter feed and public comments to stir up his base, because all we need is a small number, even one person who takes his call to action seriously and engages in some act of violence. And that is, I think, a very real concern.
I think you're right. Is there a role for attorneys who want to provide support, such as motion writing and research, but not be in the courtroom?
Yes, absolutely. And so as a general matter, many law offices have people who are experts in research and writing, appellate specialists who write the briefs. And so in a very general way, yes, most legal organizations do have those kinds of roles. Although I will tell you, once you get a taste of the courtroom, you might not want to give it up. Even if you consider yourself to be somewhat introverted, I know many introverted people who are yet very good in the courtroom when they put on their sort of courtroom persona. And if you look at public officials who are so effective at asking questions, like Kamala Harris, it's because they were prosecutors. You can see it in her when she questioned people like Brett Kavanaugh and William Barr. That training and experience as a prosecutor really shone through. But if you say, that's just not for me, I just want to do research and writing, yes, there is a place for you generally. In addition to working in a public sphere, like a prosecutor's office or a defender's office, even large law firms do a lot of great pro bono work. When Trump instituted the travel ban, many of the lawyers who were representing individuals who were detained as a result of that were lawyers in private practice for large law firms who showed up and worked pro bono on behalf of those individuals. And there are also lots of opportunities for advocacy organizations like the ACLU and others that do a lot of litigation to have private lawyers write briefs for them. When I was in private practice, the ACLU of Michigan is wonderful, but it's a very small legal staff. And so they wanted to get involved in litigation and file briefs. They would often recruit lawyers from private practice to help them write those briefs. And I had a chance to do that. And that's another thing to look for if you're working in private practice and you like to write briefs and research. There are a lot of ways you can help by contributing to briefs that are being put together by nonprofits and advocacy groups.
All right, we have one last question that we're going to take. Do you think that part of the reason more minorities are not becoming prosecutors is due to the pay? Minorities often have higher levels of debt coming out of law school and simply can't afford to go into these jobs.
I think there are a variety of reasons. I think sometimes it looks unappealing because, as I heard a friend say, I don't want to be part of the system that just locks up Black people. So I think that's one reason. But as we've heard Attorney Mosby say, the best way to make systemic change is from the inside. Yes, the pay is usually much less than lawyers can make in the private sector. And if you have substantial student loans to pay, it can be very unattractive to go into the public sector. Although at the Justice Department, there are federal loan forgiveness programs. And so if people, I think, understand that, then maybe it is less of a disincentive. But I think one of the main problems is we just need more lawyers of color altogether, because what we see is employers end up competing for the same very small pool of minority lawyers. They have lots of opportunities because many people do want to improve their diversity, but it's a small pool to share. And so if we can encourage more people to enter the profession, I think we will see more people of color ending up as prosecutors. And so we need to start young and recruit people, encourage people to become lawyers, and let them know all of the great things that this kind of career can bring to them.
And I cannot agree with you more. I think that when you look at even the debt, I know that that was an issue in law school. How do you think that the law schools do a really good job in explaining those that go into public service and loan forgiveness? Because I wasn't made aware of it until, you know, I looked into it myself. It wasn't like law school ever explained that to me. If you take out the maximum and Perkins loans, that would likely, you can get that forgiven going into public service. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I think it's getting better, but I think it has been traditionally not played up enough. I think that it's easy for law schools to send students to the pipeline of big law firms and to think of these other jobs as alternate careers. But I think we need to do a better job. Hey, I'm getting a call from MSNBC that I need to plug in. So I'm going to have to go. But thank you so much for a great conversation.
No,
thank you all so much.
Thank you, Barb. Take care.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
So we had a couple of other questions that you want me to try to respond to, or what are we doing? CLEO?
Well, I think that was fine. You know, Marilyn, we appreciate it. If you wanted to take one more question or two, that's fine. But we can also move forward. Why don't you take one more if you want?
Okay, I'll take the last question. Why aren't more minorities going into the realm of criminal justice? And the one thing that I will say is that we need to. When we look at the criminal justice system and how it has disparately impacted communities of color, it is so incredibly important for you to be there, not just at the table, but ensuring that you are applying that standard of justice to all. I can't emphasize this enough. We talked about it. Prosecutors are the ones who decide who's going to be charged with. They're going to be charged with what sentence recommendations they're going to make. I have a conviction integrity unit that is dedicated to the reinvestigations and claims of actual innocence, the first in the state to actually create a unit that is geared towards that sort of reinvestigation. We've exonerated 9 individuals that were wrongly accused, convicted, and incarcerated. I have a crime control and prevention division within my office so that we can get to young people before they get to the criminal justice system and attempts to break that school to prison pipeline. We have a policy and legislative affairs division. And this is something that you should look into, the offices that you apply to when you want to become a prosecutor. There was a question earlier about whether or not, you know, the prosecutor, you didn't necessarily want to go into the courtroom and be a trial attorney, but was there a room for you to be able to do policy work and writing and briefs? Absolutely. And a number of the larger sort of prosecutors' offices, like Larry Krasner, like Kim Fox in Chicago, like my office, I have a strategic policy and planning director in a whole division that is geared towards legislative reforms. And so, again, I think it's incredibly, incredibly important for us, for folks to be at the table and for there to be more minority participation in the field of prosecution. It's incredibly, incredibly important for you to be making those decisions about how not only affect defendants and victims, but we can all see in the past few months, the importance and how that discretion, that awesome amount of power, how that power and discretion has collateral consequences on our communities. And so with that, again, I want to thank CLEO for inviting me to moderate the discussion with Professor McQuaid. I think she did a phenomenal job. I hope we answered all of your questions, and I will turn it back over to you, Lee. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What a great conversation we witnessed, and even though Professor McQuaid has already left, you know, we definitely thank both of you for your time. I'm very appreciative of your engaged participation. You know, I'm not sure when you need to leave, State's Attorney, but before you do, we want you to continue representing CLEO in a positive light as one of our esteemed alumni, and we're proud of the work that you do. We will now have 3 additional video testimonials from past CLEO participants, to be followed by a presentation by one of our board members and another CLEO alumna, Monique Labert, regarding 2 opportunities that you could partake of to better engage with CLEO. So thank you again for your participation and time, and appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jeremy Garcia, and I am a 2020 CLEO Pre-Law Institute cohort. I was recently accepted into Penn State Dickinson School of Law. I start law school in a few weeks, and I have to say that if it wasn't for the CLEO program, I don't think I would have achieved the success that I did, and I don't think I would have gained entrance into the school I did. CLEO prepares students for the rigorous years that law school throws at you. And it's great that I got that experience beforehand because I feel like I'm walking in prepared. I'm walking in with a great support system. I'm walking in having a cohort that became friends, and we can all share the experiences that law school is because we all come from very diverse backgrounds. One of the key components I think that's crucial about CLEO is the fact that it prepares you not only for the academic rigors, but also the societal rigors. The legal profession is not one that is very diverse. And although there's much talk about diversity, there is still a lot of gatekeeping when it comes to bringing in different sorts of students from diverse backgrounds into the legal field. And I think that CLEO is doing an excellent job of doing such work. The reality is CLEO prepared me to understand that you need to know what the rule of law is and need to be able to apply it to a different set of fact pattern, which is what professors actually look for. And we had the opportunity during the 6 weeks in the summer to study under actual professors, real cases, real classroom dynamics. So I go in 1L with better sense of preparation and confident that I will succeed. CLEO believed in me and provided me the tools to succeed, and now I'm actually entering a great school, and I'm very happy with how things turned out. Thank you very much. My name is Jeremy Garcia, and I will be attending Penn State Dickinson School of Law August 24th. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elsie Guerrero, and I participated in the 1L Prep Attitude is Essential program the summer before my 1L year. I also participated as a panelist for the pre-law seminar program for 2 years in a row. I've also, while in law school, participated in the MPRE webinar, the strategies for success, and now as currently somebody who is studying for the bar, I have a CLEO mentor. I participated in the MPT, and I've also watched the 21 days of mental health towards the bar exam, and I find it very valuable. I think participating with CLEO has brought a lot of resources to me. Being the first in my family to graduate college, the first to go to law school, not having anyone who have experienced this, CLEO has definitely opened those doors to help me learn and have the knowledge, the resources, and just everything I need to be successful from before I started law school, from applying to law school. I remember CLEO helping me with that, to preparing to start to law school, to helping me during law school, as well as now while I'm done with law school. And it's a valuable experience that I hope everyone gets one day, because I'm so thankful for CLEO for giving me the opportunity to be part of this organization, this family, and I hope to pass the bar, and I'm sure I will, because CLEO has provided me all the tools. I've had valuable feedback with my MPT, and my CLEO mentor is awesome. Thank you so much, CLEO.
Hello. My name is Arthur Affleck. I'm pleased to serve on the board of CLEO. I work in the nonprofit sector in the DC area. CLEO was a lifesaver for me. I was the first in my family to go to college. I knew no one who had been to law school. I was nervous about going to law school, but CLEO helped me understand what the experience would be like. And on the first day, with my first and last name starting with an A, I was called on in multiple classes. Because of CLEO, I was not embarrassed, I was prepared. I'm often asked, what does CLEO do for the legal profession? Why is it important to have a CLEO? CLEO promotes diversity and inclusion in the profession. It is critical to a law firm's bottom line to have diverse and inclusive lawyers on their firms. But society benefits because one needs to see a judge or a lawyer who looks like them as a person of color or a woman to feel that the legal profession is fair and equitable, and CLEO helps in that way. Why should you stay connected to CLEO? For a host of reasons. Networking is always important, but it's important to have allies and advocates before you need them. The CLEO staff, the board, and graduates, I have found to be all smart, talented, and connected people. So I suggest that you stay connected to CLEO, share with us what you're doing, let us know how we can help you. So I thank you for this time to share, and I look forward to meeting all of you in person in the not too distant future.
Hi, I'm Monique Labbard, a 2005 University of Missouri, Kansas City CLEO Summer Institute alumna. I'm currently serving on the CLEO board, and I'm very excited to talk to you today about two opportunities for increased engagement with the organization. One of which you may already be acquainted with, and the other a brand new initiative currently in the exploratory stage. The first is CLEOconnection.com, an alumni and friends networking portal launched in 2017. Since its release, more than 830 individuals have joined the connection. It's very easy to register with either a LinkedIn or Facebook account or any email address. So if you are a CLEO alumnus, friend, or supporter who hasn't set up your profile yet, please do so at your earliest convenience. On the site, among other things, registered users can upload their work experience, learn about new job vacancies and industry news, and register to attend upcoming CLEO events and message other members of the CLEO network. With your support, I'm sure we can achieve our goal of making the CLEOconnection.com the online destination to network with diverse members of the legal profession and highlight noteworthy professional accomplishments. So today, we'd like to once more cordially invite everyone attending today's program who doesn't yet have his or her free profile set up to log on to CLEOconnection.com immediately after the networking sessions have concluded. Please contact a staff member if you have any questions or experience any issues with registration. The second opportunity, a really more so concept at this stage, is our desire to build on CLEOconnection.com and create a globally connected network for CLEO alumni to engage, assist, and interact with one another in furtherance of both CLEO's stated mission of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the legal profession, really bringing the community to life and taking it offline into the real world. Our working title is UCAN, an acronym for United CLEO Alumni Network. We're hoping to gauge interest in and feedback on the feasibility of such a program. As you'll recall from the discussion earlier, CLEO's vision is for the legal profession to be truly diverse, equitable, and inclusive, balancing the scales of liberty and ultimately achieving social justice for all. We hope to make CLEO and its vast number of alumni a collective force to be universally respected within the realm of politics, the law, and on the social justice front. Given the times we're living in addition to supporting CLEO itself, a network such as this could help us to support one another personally and professionally, and also to shed diverse professionals, attorneys in particular, in a positive light by becoming a resource for outlets, including but not limited to conferences, panels, mission-related research, as well as in the media. Lastly, if CLEO alumni don't come together and advocate for the needs of CLEO and programs like it to receive more support from the business community, private foundations, and government agencies, then ask yourself, who will? We're actively seeking your ideas and feedback around how we might shape and further flesh out the UCAN concept. So please be on the lookout for more information, including an interest survey, to be posted on CLEOconnection.com in the very near future. Ideally, we hope that UCAN can be formally established sometime in 2021. With that, thanks so much for listening, and I'll hand things off to Yaneris and Zora, who plan to explain the CLEO 2020 Challenge.
Thank you so much, Monique. So welcome to the CLEO 2020 Challenge. I'm Zora Tajani, a CLEO board member. I'm excited to share the details of this challenge with you. The challenge is open to all CLEO alumni. That means anyone who has participated in any CLEO program, and all friends and supporters of CLEO. So that's all of you. Completing the challenge will land you a spot on the CLEO website and a special digital badge to use in your social media. This recognition will let the world know about your continued commitment to advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion in the legal profession. As we heard earlier today, a diverse legal profession positively impacts our collective quest for racial equality and justice. CLEO's mission to inspire, motivate, and prepare students from underrepresented communities to succeed in law school and beyond is perfectly aligned to this moment in our history, especially given CLEO's 50-plus year track record of effective pre-law programs. So there are two ways to participate and to meet in the CLEO 2020 challenge. You can see option A. You can complete two of the following: 20 service hours to any nonprofit or faith-based organization with a mission aligned to CLEO's, a $20 donation to CLEO, 20 reactions or shares, at least, on a positive social media post about CLEO or one of CLEO's programs, 20 email messages to CLEO alumni or to pre-law students, encouraging them either to reconnect or to learn more about CLEO. So again, that's two of one of those four. Option B is to donate $20 or simply $400 to CLEO. So the challenge runs from today through the end of the year, and anytime during this period, you can complete the challenge and submit an online form indicating that you've completed the challenge, and that form will be posted on the website soon. Updates will be sent out from time to time, and the results will be announced early in 2021. So I know I'm going to take the challenge. I hope you will too, and it's time to represent your CLEO pride. And with that, I say thank you, and I'll turn it over to Brandy.
Thank you. So I'm Brandy Smith. I serve on the Advisory Council for CLEO, and I want to thank you for joining us. I don't know about you, but I'm full after last night and then hearing today. I really am full, but we're not done yet, so don't hang up. I do want to give thanks to our presenters, the Honorable Marilyn Mosley, Professor Barbara McQuaid. I also want to thank our board chair, Elizabeth Campbell, all of the CLEO board members, the staff, and the Alumni Engagement Committee. And a big shout out to our chair for the Alumni Engagement Committee, the Honorable Denise Owens, for leading us to today. I think Professor McQuaid said it best when she said, this is our moment. And as lawyers, as leaders, and as CLEO alum, this is our moment. This is our moment to connect to CLEO, refresh, understand what programs are being offered now, and continue to push the CLEO agenda and continue to push the underrepresented lawyers in the legal profession. It's also our moment to refresh your commitment. Think about the options. I saw Elizabeth say, hey, the plan B is pretty easy. If you want to hop in and just give money, it's pretty easy. We want you to connect further than that. I also want to remind you that following this program, either during this meeting, you received an email, and also in our chat, you receive a link to our networking program. And the networking is a time for videos to be on, for us to connect those who are in the different alumni rooms, to refresh and catch up with people either you may know or may not know, and to continue to build that CLEO network and connection. So again, thank you for tuning in. Continue to support CLEO. I also want to mention that we do have our event coming up in November. I thought it was on the slide. If you could go back to the slide, was it not mentioned there? And if not, I'll ask later to add the details to when our event is in November. Thank you.